My wife spent 5 years pranking me, and when I asked her to stop, she said I had no sense of humor. Her last prank sent her to the hospital. My wife Jenna loved pranks. She had been pulling them on me since we started dating 5 years ago. At first they were harmless. Jump scares when I came home from work. Plastic wrap on the toilet seat, fake spiders in my shoes. I laughed along because they were silly, and she seemed so happy when she got a reaction out of me. But over the years, the pranks got more elaborate and more dangerous. She put hot sauce in my toothpaste once, and I burned my mouth so badly I couldn't eat solid food for 2 days. She thought it was hilarious. She loosened the cap on the salt shaker, and I ruined an entire meal I had spent hours cooking. She said I should have seen the look on my face. She hid my car keys before an important meeting and only gave them back after I missed it entirely. She said I needed to learn to be less uptight. Every time I asked her to stop, she said I had no sense of humor. She said life was too short to be serious all the time. She said if I couldn't handle a few jokes, maybe I wasn't the right person for her. She used that threat constantly. Be fun or I'll leave. Laugh or you're boring. Accept this or find someone else. I stayed because I loved her, and I thought eventually she would grow out of it. She didn't grow out of it. She escalated. Last month she decided to do a knife prank. She had seen videos online of people pretending to stab themselves with retractable stage knives. The blade pushes into the handle when you press it against something so it looks real but causes no harm. She thought it would be the perfect scare. She ordered a retractable knife online and practiced the motion a few times. She planned to pretend she was cutting vegetables and then scream and act like she had stabbed herself. She wanted to see me panic. She wanted to watch me rush to help her. She wanted to laugh at my terror and call me gullible. The problem was she didn't use the prop knife. The retractable knife she ordered looked almost identical to one of our real kitchen knives. Same black handle, same blade length, same weight. She had left both of them on the counter after practicing, and when the moment came, she grabbed the wrong one without checking. I was sitting at the kitchen table reading when she started her performance. She made a noise like she was in pain. She called my name in a panicked voice. I looked up and saw her holding a knife with what looked like blood on her hand. I jumped up immediately and ran toward her. She was laughing already. She thought the prank was working perfectly. She thought the blood was from a capsule she had hidden in her palm. She didn't realize the blood was actually hers. She had actually cut her own hand while trying to make the fake stabbing motion. The real knife had sliced across her palm when she pressed it against herself, expecting the blade to retract. It didn't retract because it was real steel. I saw the wound before she felt it. The shock hadn't hit her yet, and she was still laughing about fooling me. Then she looked down and saw the actual gash across her hand. Then she saw the real blood pouring out. Then she started screaming for real. I grabbed a kitchen towel and wrapped it around her hand. I told her to apply pressure while I got my keys. I drove her to the emergency room going 15 miles over the speed limit. She was crying the whole way, saying she didn't understand what happened. She kept saying the knife was supposed to be fake. She kept saying this wasn't how it was supposed to go. The emergency room was busy, but they took her back quickly once they saw how much she was bleeding. A doctor examined the wound and said she would need stitches. He asked how this happened. Jenna started explaining that it was just a prank gone wrong. She said she thought she had a prop knife but grabbed the real one instead. She said she was just trying to scare her husband. She said it like it was a reasonable thing to do. The doctor looked at me. He asked if I was the husband. I said yes. He asked if this kind of thing happened often. I didn't answer at first. He asked again more directly. He asked if my wife frequently did things that put herself or me in danger. Jenna jumped in and said of course not. She said this was just an accident. She said I wasn't in any danger because she was the one who got hurt. She said the prank was aimed at her, not at me. The doctor nodded slowly. He said he was glad nobody else was injured. He said knife wounds could be fatal if they hit the wrong spot. He said she was lucky the cut was on her palm and not her wrist or her stomach. He said pretending to stab yourself with a knife was never a good idea, even with prop knives. He said accidents happened and real knives were not toys. Jenna got 18 stitches. Her hand would take weeks to heal, and she might have permanent nerve damage depending on how the tissue recovered. When we came back to our house, she called her mom crying. She told her that I stabbed her. I was standing 3 feet away when she said it. I heard every word. She told her mother that we had been arguing and that I grabbed a knife and cut her hand. She said she tried to stop me, but I was too strong. She said she was terrified and didn't know what to do. Her mother was screaming on the other end of the phone. I could hear it from across the room. I stood there frozen, not because I was afraid, because something inside me had finally broken. 5 years of pranks I had tolerated. 5 years of being told I was too serious, too stiff, too boring. 5 years of her crossing lines and me redrawing them further back to give her more room. And now she was telling her mother I was a violent husband who attacked her with a kitchen knife. I said, Jenna, that is not what happened. She looked at me with tears streaming down her face and mouthed the words, shut up. She went back to talking to her mother. She said I had a temper. She said she had been afraid to say anything before. She said this wasn't the first time I had been aggressive. Every sentence was a lie. Every word was designed to make me the villain in a story she had written in real time, while the blood from her own self-inflicted wound was still drying on the kitchen counter. Her mother said she was calling the police. Jenna didn't stop her. She didn't correct a single thing she had said. She just kept crying and saying she was scared. I went to the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. I could hear her in the living room still talking, still layering the lie, adding details that never existed, saying I had thrown things before, saying I had grabbed her arm once during an argument. None of it was true. Not a single word. I pulled out my phone and called my brother. I told him everything. The prank, the knife, the hospital, the phone call, the lies. He didn't hesitate. He told me to leave the house immediately. He said if her mother called the police and they showed up and Jenna told them I cut her, I would be arrested on the spot. He said it wouldn't matter what I said because she had the wound and I had the knife in the kitchen and her family would back her story. He said get out now and come to my place. I packed a bag in 4 minutes. I took my laptop, my wallet, my phone charger, a change of clothes. I walked past Jenna on my way out. She was still on the phone. She looked up and said, where are you going? I said away from you. She covered the phone with her hand. You can't just leave. I'm injured. I said you told your mother I did that to you. She blinked. That's different. I'll explain it later. It's not different, Jenna. I opened the front door. She stood up from the couch, still holding her bandaged hand against her chest. If you leave right now, I'll tell everyone you did this to me. I looked at her. I looked at the bandaged hand she had destroyed with her own knife during her own prank that she planned and executed decided entirely by herself. I said you already did. I drove to my brother's apartment. He had a guest room and told me I could stay as long as I needed. He made coffee and sat across from me at his kitchen table and asked me to tell him everything from the beginning. Not just today, everything. So I did. I told him about the hot sauce in the toothpaste. I told him about the time she replaced my shampoo with hair removal cream and I lost a patch of hair on the side of my head. I told him about the time she put a realistic fake snake in my car and I swerved into oncoming traffic and nearly died. I told him about the time she told me my mother had been in a car accident and let me panic for 20 minutes before saying it was a joke. I told him about the time she hid all my work clothes the morning of a presentation and watched me tear the house apart while she sat on the couch filming me. I told him about the fake positive pregnancy test she left on the bathroom counter. I told him about every single time I asked her to stop and she told me I was boring or too sensitive or not fun enough. My brother listened to all of it without interrupting. When I finished, he said one thing. That's not pranking. That's abuse. He said he wished I had told him sooner. He said he had noticed things over the years. The way I flinched when Jenna reached for something suddenly. The way I always checked my food before eating when we were at their house for dinner. The way I stopped bringing up anything about my home life. He said he thought I was just private. He said he didn't realize I was surviving. That night the phone call started. Her mother called me 11 times. I didn't answer. Her father called twice. I didn't answer. Her sister sent me a text message that said, "You're going to prison for what you did to my sister, you monster." I didn't respond. Jenna texted me at midnight. She said she was sorry for overreacting on the phone with her mom. She said she would clear things up. She said I should come home so they could see we were fine and everything was just a big misunderstanding. I didn't respond. At 2 in the morning, she texted again. She said if I didn't come home, she couldn't control what her family did next. I read it and put my phone face down on the nightstand. The next morning, 2 police officers knocked on my brother's door. They said they had received a report of a domestic violence incident and they were looking for me. They asked if I was willing to talk. My brother, who is an attorney, told me not to say anything without a lawyer present. He said it calmly and clearly. He said my client has nothing to say at this time. The officers were professional about it. They said they had spoken with Jenna at our house the previous evening. They said her account described an argument that escalated to physical violence involving a knife. They said they were required by law to investigate any report involving a weapon. My brother asked if they had a warrant for my arrest. They said no. He said then, "We'll provide a detailed statement through counsel," and he closed the door. I sat on my brother's couch and stared at the wall for what felt like an hour. My hands were shaking, not from guilt, from the realization that the woman I had loved for 5 years had looked at a wound she gave herself and decided in real time that I would make a better story than the truth. She had done the math. Injured wife plus kitchen knife plus her word against mine equaled a version of events that protected her ego. I had never been in trouble in my life, never had a speeding ticket, never been in a fight, never raised my hand to anyone. And now there were police at the door because my wife had lied to avoid admitting that her prank went wrong. That was all this was. She couldn't face the embarrassment of explaining that she cut herself with her own knife trying to scare her husband, so she invented an attacker. And the attacker she invented was me. I hired a lawyer that afternoon. His name was Anthony Russo, and he charged me $4,200 as a retainer just to start. He told me the first thing we needed was the hospital records from the emergency room visit. He said the ER would have documented everything. How the wound presented, what Jenna told the admitting nurse, what she told the doctor, what the doctor observed about the nature of the injury and the interaction between patient and spouse. He said that documentation would be the single most important piece of evidence if charges were filed because it was created in real time by a neutral medical professional with no stake in the outcome. He asked if there were any other details I could remember from the hospital visit. I told him the doctor asked me direct questions about whether Jenna regularly did dangerous things. I told him Jenna herself had explained to the doctor in detail that it was a prank involving a prop knife that went wrong. I told him she even laughed during parts of the examination and described the whole thing as a joke gone bad. My lawyer smiled for the first time. He said that was very good. He said Jenna had made a voluntary admission to a licensed medical professional in a clinical setting with no coercion and no reason to lie. He said that admission directly and completely contradicted any later claim that I had caused the injury. He said a doctor's contemporaneous notes were considered highly reliable evidence in court. He filed a medical records request that same day under the legal authority granted by the open police investigation. The hospital responded within 48 hours. The report was 6 pages long. It was thorough and devastating to Jenna's story. It documented that the patient presented with a deep laceration to the left palm, consistent with a self-inflicted pressing and dragging motion. It documented that the wound pattern was inconsistent with a slashing or stabbing attack by another person. It documented that the patient stated clearly and repeatedly that she had been attempting a prank using what she believed was a retractable prop knife and had accidentally used a real kitchen knife instead. It documented that the patient's husband drove her to the hospital and had applied appropriate first aid at the scene, including compression and wound wrapping. It documented that the attending physician observed no signs of distress, fear, or tension between the patient and her husband during the examination. It documented that the husband appeared genuinely concerned and fully cooperative. It documented that the patient laughed multiple times during the initial examination and described the incident as a joke that went wrong. It documented that the physician had asked the husband privately whether this type of behavior was common and that the husband had appeared emotionally exhausted but showed no signs of aggression or hostility. Every single word in that report destroyed the version Jenna had given to her mother and to the police. My lawyer sent certified copies to the investigating officers. He sent copies to the district attorney's office. He included a 6-page written statement from me detailing the full history of Jenna's pranks over 5 years. The hot sauce, the car keys, the salt shaker, the fake snake in the car, the hair removal cream, the fake pregnancy test, the fake emergency call about my mother, every single incident documented with approximate dates. He framed it clearly and directly. My client is not an abuser. His wife is a habitual prankster whose escalating behavior culminated in a self-inflicted knife injury. She then fabricated a domestic violence allegation to avoid embarrassment. The medical evidence is unambiguous. The police closed their investigation within a week. No charges were filed. The detective who handled the case called my lawyer and said off the record that Jenna's story collapsed the moment they reviewed the medical records. He said her own words to the doctor made prosecution impossible. He said they see cases like this more than people realize. He said sometimes the person who causes the harm rewrites the story before the wound is even stitched. He also said something else. He said they were considering whether Jenna could be charged with filing a false police report. He said that decision was above his pay grade, but he wanted us to know it was on the table. My lawyer said we would cooperate with whatever the department decided. Jenna found out the investigation was closed on a Tuesday. She called me 14 times that day. I answered on the 15th call. She was crying. She said she never meant for it to go this far. She said her mother panicked and called the police before she could take back what she said. She said she tried to tell them it was a misunderstanding, but they had already opened a file. She said she was sorry. She said she loved me. She said she wanted me to come home so we could work through this together. I asked her one question. Did you tell your mother I stabbed you, yes or no? She paused. I was in pain, and I was emotional, and I didn't know what I was saying. That's not a no, Jenna. She paused again. I was scared. That's not a no either. She went quiet for a long time. Then she said, fine. Yes, I said that, but I didn't mean it the way it sounded. I said it sounded like you told your mother that your husband attacked you with a kitchen knife. She said, I know how it sounded, but that's not what I meant in my heart. I said, what you meant in your heart doesn't matter when 2 police officers show up at my brother's door asking about a domestic violence complaint. It doesn't matter when your sister texts me saying I'm going to prison. It doesn't matter when I have to hire a lawyer for $4,200 to defend myself against something that never happened. She started crying harder. She said she would pay for the lawyer. She said she would call her mother and tell her the truth. She said she would do whatever it took. I said I want a divorce. The line went completely silent. She said, you don't mean that. I said I already have a lawyer, Jenna. He's very good. She said, you want to end our marriage over a prank. I said I want to end our marriage over a lie. A lie you told while looking me in the eye. A lie that could have put me in prison. She said I told you I would fix it. I said you told your mother I stabbed you while I was standing 3 feet away from you in our living room. You watched me drive you to the hospital. You watched me wrap your hand. You watched me break every speed limit to get you help. And then you sat on our couch and told your mother I was the one who hurt you. That wasn't a panic response. That was a choice. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then her voice changed. It got cold and flat in a way I had never heard before. She said, if you divorce me, I will tell everyone what you did to me. I said what I did to you. She said, I will make sure everyone knows the kind of man you are. I said, Jenna, the hospital has your own signed statement saying you cut yourself with your own knife during your own prank. The police have it. My lawyer has it. The district attorney's office has it. Your version of events died the second you told that emergency room doctor the truth before you had time to make up something better. She hung up. The divorce papers were filed the following Thursday. Jenna contested nothing. Her lawyer reviewed the hospital records and the police report and the written statement and apparently advised her that fighting this would go very badly for her. She agreed to a clean split. No alimony, no disputes over assets. We sold the house and divided the equity evenly. I lost about $40,000 when everything was added up between legal fees and closing costs and the fact that we sold the house quickly instead of waiting for a better market. I didn't care. That $40,000 was the price of leaving and I would have paid twice that. I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment 12 miles from the house we had shared. It was small and quiet and nobody jumped out from behind doors. Nobody replaced my shampoo. Nobody hid my keys. Nobody screamed as a joke or bled as a performance. The silence was strange at first. I kept waiting for something to happen. After a few weeks, I realized that the constant state of alertness I had been living in for 5 years was not normal. I had forgotten what it felt like to relax in my own home. Her family never apologized. Not once. Her mother still tells people I'm dangerous. Her sister still has me blocked on everything. Her father sent me one text message after the divorce was finalized. It said, I hope you're happy with yourself. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say to people who had already decided what happened. My own family closed ranks around me completely. My brother handled most of the legal coordination and refused to let me pay him for his time. My mother came to stay with me for 2 weeks after I moved into my new apartment. She didn't ask many questions about Jenna. She just made sure I ate 3 meals a day and went to work and didn't sit alone in the dark. She said one thing about the marriage. She said I stayed too long. She was right. I knew she was right. I had spent 5 years excusing behavior that got progressively more dangerous because the person doing it called it love and called it fun and called me the problem when I objected. I told myself it was just her personality. I told myself she would change. She never changed. She just found new ways to make it worse. 4 months after the divorce was finalized, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Anthony Russo, my lawyer. He said he wanted to tell me something as a professional courtesy. He said Jenna's new boyfriend had contacted his office looking for legal advice. He said the boyfriend described a situation where Jenna had set up an elaborate prank involving fake blood pooled on the kitchen floor, and the boyfriend had slipped on it coming through the front door and fractured his wrist in 2 places. He said the boyfriend wanted to know if he had grounds for a personal injury claim. Russo said he couldn't take the case because of the conflict of interest with representing me, but he thought I deserved to know. I thanked him and ended the call. I sat in my apartment for a while after that. I thought about calling the boyfriend to warn him. I thought about reaching out to Jenna to tell her she genuinely needed professional help. I thought about a lot of things. I didn't do any of them. Some people don't stop until there's no one left to laugh.